Now we have a slightly different way of doing the same thing. So now, for some reason, the notes are saying, ooh, look at this different way of writing what we were just writing. It moves base to the other side. So we have amount equals base times P over 100. For some problems, that is useful. For other problems, it's not going to help that much. But at least whatever our unknown is, it's not on the bottom of a fraction. That is nice. So first, 12 and 13, you literally just want us to fill in the numbers and the unknown into that new equation form. So remember, amount is, base is the of number, the whole, part to whole, amount over base. Is over of. This is our is, this is our of. So what is x is base is of 850. And what is 36%? So we have 36 over 100. So when we don't know the is, that percent equation there puts all the numbers already on the right side, which is nice. But now let's see what happens. Oh, this one is another. We have 235%, so 235 over 100. Put parentheses around that. Of 71.2, that's our base, is what number? X. So we could crunch that, but there we go. Now on these next ones, they're asking us to use the percent equation to solve these. You can do that. The way we were just doing it with is over of equals percent over 100 will also work. You do not need to use both. Use one and get comfy with it so you can always make it do the thing. So here, 36 is, that's our amount, 45%, so 45 over 100 of what? There's our unknown base, our of. So we have 45 over 100 is the decimal 0.45. So we have 0.45 times x. So we're just going to divide by that. And that will be solving the equation, getting x by itself by canceling out the multiplication with division. And even if you don't remember that 45 over 100 is going to be 0.45, as long as you use your parentheses, you can just get the calculator to crunch this. All right, so 36 divided by open, 45 divided by 100, close it, equals 80. Thank you, calculator. So 45% of 80, well, 50% of 80 would be 40. 36 is a little bit smaller. Yeah, seems reasonable. All right, same song, second verse. 5.7 is the amount. So 5.7 is, now when you have is in a math statement, that is often where the equal sign is, and that's what's happening here. So we have 5.7 on one side, then is our equals, and now we're going to have the 38% in our formula. They wrote it here as 38 over 100. Then of, when it's written like this, a lot of times ends up being multiplication. So of what number is just a placeholder for unknown, or x. And then we solve it just the way we did. Divide by the 38 over 100. But So 5.7 is 38 is kind of close to a third. So if we triple that, it's going to be like 15 or 16, maybe 17, but somewhere in that range. That's about the number we're expecting to see. So having like a rough idea of the size of your answer before you crunch it is good, because that way if the number is off from what you were thinking, then you can pause and say, okay, wait, I wasn't thinking about a number like this. Does this make sense? Was I misthinking before? Or did I fumble when I was trying to use the calculator? Because sometimes we get so intense on typing, we don't notice that there was an extra number up top. I call that thumbling instead of fumbling because it's funny. Yes, I know, I tell dad jokes. I'm a single mom, what can I say? Wow, really? Oh, well, 5.7 is a little bit more than the third, and I was just doing it as a raw third, so yeah. We got 15, that's why I went really. I was like, what? Just 15? Now I sound like my daughter, or my daughter sounds like me. So 38% of 15 is 5.7. Okay. Now we got a kind of word problem. So 80% of the students in a high school receive a free lunch. If 2020 students receive a free lunch, how many students are in the school? So 80% of the students in the school, the total, that's what the first one is telling us. Then the second one is telling us that the students who receive a free lunch is 2020. So that is our is. I could write this, I'm going to type it as the sentence 80% of the total number of students is 2020. That's our is of percent 100 now. So I took the knowledge I have and I translated it into an is of sentence. So we knew we were going to have 80 over 100. It's just a question of where does that 2020 go? Is that the part or the whole? And it turns out 2020 is the part. So if we use the second style where the base is already moved, we'd have 2020 times 80 over 100, but I am a creature of habit. Sorry, put it in the wrong spot. So I'll put it on, do the is over of. All right. So now we're actually going to end up with 2020 times 100 divided by 80. Or 2020 divided by 80 over 100, but I'll just do what we would get from the cross multiply and then divide by the third. 2020 times 100 divided by 80. 2525. So there are 2,525 students in this school. Yeah, I think that's about what my high school had. I went to Holmes, so when you count, we had a magnet school. I think when you counted the magnet students, we might have hit that. Or maybe we were over that. I don't know, it's been 20 years, I don't remember. And now, how many students do not receive free lunch? So this is my total. And they told me 2020 receive a free lunch. So don't overthink it. How many don't receive a free lunch? Subtract. Oh, sorry. 505. Forgot to subtract the 20. So 505 students do not receive free lunch. There we go. We just solved a word problem. Yeah. All right, now we're back to, they want us to use the percent second equation and solve for the p's now. This did. I really prefer is over of percent over 100. So what percent, that's our x over 100 of 45, so 45 is our base, is 571 is the amount, is the is number. So 45 times x over 100, you could rewrite this as 45 over 100 times x. Multiplication and division are the same order. So like rearranging it is okay as long as the divided by, the number we're dividing by is the same. So I said 45 divided by 100 times x is the same as 45 times x divided by 100. The 100 is still divided by, the rest of them are being timesed. It's fine. So to solve, we're going to divide 571 by 45 over 100. Make sure to use your parentheses. 571 divided by open 45 over 100 close. Oh, well, yeah. 45 was the of number and 571 is the is number. We should be getting a ridiculous percent. So my calculator came up with 1,268.88888. Round to the nearest tenth. So the first decimal place, the second 8 will turn the first 8 into a 9. So 1,268.9 is the percent that 571 is of 45. Ridiculous. So now we have 26 is what percent of 36? So again, I'm just going to do it as over of. So 26 is of 36 is what percent? So I just multiply by the 100. 100 times 26 divided by 36. 72.222222. So 72.2%. Go back and write that percent there. So remember that's what kind of number we're talking about. All right. So any way you want to set these up and work, you can do it, but they all end up devolving back to multiply two of the numbers, divide by the third number. The catch is figuring out which number goes where. That's why I like is over of percent over 100. I can see all my numbers very clearly. The two numbers that are diagonal get multiplied and you divide by the third one every time. All right. I'm going to stop it and then we're going to have some word problems or applications.